being conducted under town and New York State on the published agenda and at the town clerk's agenda and meeting portal on the town's website. Viewing only is accomplished by activating the live link at the top of the town clerk's meeting portal page. Tonight's meeting is being moderated by Peter of CTV. For remote comment on particular agenda items, individuals may notify CTV via the chat function for a particular agenda item or the raise hand function relative to an agenda item that comes up so that comment can be made. To reduce wait times for online and in-person participants, our practice is to advance such items to the top of our meeting agenda as long as we are notified of the agenda item of interest. Commentators will need to provide name, agency, if relevant, and place of residence or business when they make their comment. Members present tonight on this April 15th, 2025 meeting of the Landmarks and Historic Districts Board are Larry Jones, Vicki Kahn, Tim Ganettis, Susan Sherry Clark, Samantha Malone, Jeffrey Gibbons, Bill Hine, and Stephanie Davis, and myself, Ed Wisnowski. With that, we can proceed to the first item of business so that we don't forget, and that's the approval of minutes from our March 18th, 2025 meeting. They were circulated previously, and Susan mentioned indicating Zoom participation by an individual, which was done. I don't know if there are any other comments to be made. I move then the adoption of the minutes of March 2025, seconded by Susan. All in favor say aye. Aye. Okay, the minutes are adopted. Well, to continue with our agenda in order of interest and participation, we'll first take up 177 Sabonic Road in Tuckahoe. This is a house that has been unoccupied for a substantial period of time. The demolition application that was sent along provided pictures of the exterior condition of the house. The house has been deteriorating for some time, and excuse me, the conditions around the house probably are not easily noticeable. The house is obscured by substantial landscape specimens, as you can see in this picture on the, let me try to get this picture over here. It's behind this hedge. This house, I did provide a brief description of the property. It is present on the 1930 map. As you can see here, the AYB in the assessor's record is for 1940. the house obviously was around much before that. The house had also some, earlier was a smaller house and had an addition put on, I believe, equivalent to a bedroom on the, what would it be, the west side of the house in the past. My observation, it was in a state of repair, disrepair. There were no other structures of historic character or significance in the immediate area. And the ownership that I was able to look at was not of any consequence for this particular structure. And so my recommendation based on that is to not object to the demolition. These are some of the photographs I took back in a March visit to this property. You can see the base of the house is probably had animals already accessing the interior.
Lots of them.
Pardon?
Lots of them.
Lots of them, yeah. So, and the mailbox hadn't been emptied in quite a period of time. I don't know, is the
I
mailbox?
will inform the owner to finally do that, yeah.
Okay. And this is the picture I put on the little report that I sent around. Are there any things associated with my recommendation that are of concern to the board? If not, then I will send a response back of no objection as the consensus of the board. So,
Thank you very much.
all right.
Good night.
Good night. 163 Maple Lane is for work already done, and most of what might be ordinarily of concern for this would be, just as a refresher, this house has been before us before for additions, redoing the front of the house and a porch area, as well as other parts of the structure in the rear. And in the process, they installed a circular stairway on the rear of the house. This is a house in Bridgehampton, and this is the property of, let me get the 2004. This is a 2022 image of the property outlined. And as you can see, in 2024, the work is underway for what was previously presented to the Landmarks Board for approval. The application had a picture of the stairs and window wells there. Let me see. Window staircase, I believe. So this is the house with the circular staircase already installed. And this is a stairway to the cellar that was installed too.
So I think what was left, so there's a circular stair up to the master bedroom balcony, and it's on the inside corner of the rear of the house.
Right.
It just wasn't specifically spelled out the previous time we were here, even though it was there. Everything else, and then there's a basement areaway, which
That
was on the existing.
That was on the
That was
previous
on the
plan.
existing.
Yeah.
So I think it was just when we went for the CO, the building inspector said, oh, wait, the stair wasn't specifically noted. So we went through the whole process again.
All right.
I have some hard copies if you want to just take a peek. Or...
It's on the rear of the house. It's not visible. I don't see that there is any problem. My recommendation would be not to object to it and respond accordingly to the building department there. No.
I think there may have also been mention of a like a fire table, what they call.
Oh,
it.
yeah, inside there was a fireplace and a gas fireplace installed and
In the addition, yes.
an event. Yeah, a gas fireplace in the great room and I think there are pictures of that as well.
Yes, it has no chimney, and then the existing fireplace was restored and is also still remains that one.
Right.
So.
So any concerns here? And so consensus is not to object, and we will respond accordingly to the building department. And
Thank you.
you receive those.
Thank you. Final
Yeah.
little CO.
Okay. 102 Audubon Avenue, Bridgehampton. And I did a brief report for you also on this. That was circulated. This house also had, I think, an inaccurate build year in the assessor's database. I found the house on the 1930 aerial map. And of course, the 2024 version of the same area has those empty farm fields well populated with habitation. And in checking the history of it, the house for a certificate of occupancy and affidavit was filed 1980 or so by Benjamin Mickney, who was a name from the west part of Southampton town. He was from Eastport originally and settled to practice law in Bridgehampton. And he indicated he bought the house from Ralph Halsey, and tracking down Ralph Halsey, he turned out, one, to be a carpenter in a building business with his father, David Halsey, and the time of the marriage that is noted in the newspaper article there from 1930 is that after their marriage, Ralph Halsey and his wife will be at home in their new house in Bridgehampton. And so that gives an indication of why it is 1930 as a build date for it. The proposal is to do a fair amount of work on the property, on the house itself. Let me see if I can just briefly bring up the elevations here. And just to indicate, there's an addition to be put on the south side of the house in this left-hand picture. And also to redo the patio structure that you see on the south west corner area of the house itself. The house itself had some, let me see if I can bring up the oblique aerials for you to give a better picture of the character of the house. Okay, this is the house here on this piece of property. When this farm area was being developed from the E.A. Hildreth ownership, the parcels were about 25-foot wide strips. So if you were to build a house, you would have to buy multiple very narrow strips of land here. And this property actually was on a very narrow strip of land. And later on, the owner, Mickney, bought an additional strip of land next door in order to give himself room. That would be in the area of the driveway on the north side of the house along this hedge line here. So, but this is where parts of the addition plan take place. These dormer roofed, these dormers are going to be replaced by shed dormer structure as well, so it will change considerably the face of the house. You can't see the face of the house very much because of the foliage and landscaping along the street side there. So let me see if I can then get the application for 102 to just provide a refresher on the change in appearance. So as you can see, this will now be the street-facing side, the east side of the house. No longer do you have the dormers available. The only real possibility of expanding the space for what was somewhat of a small house originally is actually to that south side. You can't, the driveway is on the north side and gives access to the house. They plan to change the parking to provide basically a parking area in front of the house as well. The rear of the house, I'm sorry, the west side of the house will also be radically changed as well. They're dramatic changes. My sense was that it basically and not being a visible house to a lot of traffic in the community, that it's a workable way to do the addition, and I didn't myself find good reason to object. So I don't know if you have concerns about this.
It's a lot of metal roof.
Yes, that seems to be a trend that we're seeing a lot of. A lot of new construction, a lot of renovation or replacement roofing is metal roof, standing seam metal roof, a new kind of pattern for integrating into your perspective on a structure's features and aesthetics. So is there any feeling that there is something really here to object
I
to?
only mentioned it because it's come up a few times in other projects where we have objected to the metal roof. But personally, I mean, the house sort of like, I mean, something it never was.
Yeah.
So it changes its roof material.
Right. So the house is not in any historic survey, so it's also was not included in the town's research on it. So
I think the fact that the house is not identified as a historic resource, and there aren't historic resources in immediate proximity, reduces my concern for the change to a metal roof. And metal roof is going to be, I think, pretty clearly visible from the street side of the house. It will be a big change.
So any further comments? So you didn't press the button?
I didn't press the button.
Okay.
So press the button and say it again.
Yeah. But any other feelings on this? So,
Well, the good thing about a metal roof is it, as long as it stays on, protects the house. As long as the roof stays on, it's not blown off, it protects the building fairly well. I think one of the things we're finding is with a lot of new generation steel roofs, there's been problems with them rusting out from the underside. If they're not properly ventilated. So it, it's replaceable in the future. It's like with this, a lot of historic buildings we all work on, for things like the siding and the roofing, are always, about every 30 or 40 years they have to be replaced. So it's one of those kind of maintenance type items that so you put up with the look of it for the next 15 or 20 years, and then it gets replaced with something else, assuming it does its job. Now, it's another thing if it happens to be stainless steel or copper, or lead coated copper, those don't last a very long time, but it is like a trend going through that.
no, that's a good point, and something to keep in mind. A lot of things are transient in our structures, and we face the same kind of questions of roof characteristics when we think about solar installations on them as well. But if there's no problem with a no objection response, we will send that back to the building department. Okay. 978 Montauk Highway, Planning Board referral. And thank you, Susan, for uploading the prior report from 2017, was it? To give some familiarity to the
Excuse me, would the board like me to go up to the podium now or wait until you've presented?
well, you can go and we'll just try to set things up a little bit for.
As I remember in looking through some email archives that I had kept when we had gotten the construction application. I think the first one was 2017. There was sort of a rush because it was for the roof and the chimney and it was leaking, so we expedited it because that was the major exterior changes. There were some interior alterations, and I wasn't able to find that response. Well, there was one, I found one response just saying that we didn't object to it. But I think there was somebody had talked to him and encouraged him to keep, the windows and the floors. And if you look at that link, there's some gorgeous floors. He kept the windows. I think he took to heart because it was going, I think his family, it doesn't make who, somebody was going to reside there and he's going to use it for his business. So at least at that time, I felt it was successful, preservation. And then he came back in 2018, and I think they just needed to do some deck work. It was basically repairs, so we waived that.
Right.
So I just stopped briefly in the parking area, and the pictures, I sent 3 pictures that I took. One of the one-story building that my understanding would be demolished for parking. And that one has an AYB of 1976. But reading that permit, it may have replaced a previous accessory structure. So my point would be and we'll let you say from a site plan, from a historic district, a historic districts board, I didn't see any problems. I would ask that we would get the application for demolition or construction when that time came. And thank goodness you only take a right, but that's not our purview because I happened to be there, I think Friday around 3 or 4 o'clock, something like that. And I was lucky to get out going to the right, but I know there are you've accommodated, there will be accommodations for exit, so I didn't. Oh, and the main house has an AYB of 1780, and it's also an AKRF, it's Watermill 34, and it was a Rose house. But that was included in the history in 2017.
Right. So
And that's when it was the antique house. You can see
it still has the antique sign on it over the door.
Not anymore.
Just for the information of everybody, the planning referral is associated with the establishment of a cannabis dispensary, non-medical cannabis dispensary, for this house, former house. And it involves clearly some change of the site that's involved, and a number of other factors that the planning board will be considered. The planning board can bring about some requirements for the property in terms of its approval of the use that the application is for. So it's an old and distinguished house with a distinguished pedigree for the Watermill community, particularly associated with the Rose family in Watermill for many years. It's on Montauk Highway amidst a mixed commercial area.
Visible.
And very visible, yes, and hopefully always will remain visible. So, do you want to say something?
Thank you. My name is Martha Reichert. I'm with the law firm of Toomey, Latham, Shea, Kelly, Dubin, and Quartararo, 33 West 2nd Street, Riverhead, New York. I represent the property owner and the applicant, Ashley Caprero, LLC. As was summarized before, this is before this board. This is a referral to the board from the planning board pursuant to a site plan and special exception use application to change from the antique retail use to a retail cannabis dispensary that is an approved and conforming use for the zoning district. One of the things that the applicant seeks to do with this application is pretty much keep the existing structure the way it is. On the westerly side of the building, we will need to make it ADA accessible, which will necessitate the construction of a ramp, and also the existing door that's there, which is fairly narrow and high up, will also have to be widened in order to be ADA accessible and meet the needs of ingress and egress. So a small glass box is proposed to be put there. We will be before the ARB at their next meeting to discuss that. But the addition in that respect in terms of the ADA ramp and also the glass box is also in keeping with the Department of the Interior's historic preservation guidelines for additions. It is distinct and separate from the main house and the architectural style, so there will be no confusion about the fact that this is a new addition. I would say, having been inside the interior, and just not only am I an attorney, but I am a historic preservationist as well and a former archaeologist. The interior of the building, the section that you see that faces Montauk Highway, that is parallel to Montauk Highway, and if you look at the report from 2017, at probably the 1900 map, it shows the house was smaller, and at some point there was an addition, and that's the one that is oriented on a north-south basis. And that jives when you go into the basement. The original house has a full fieldstone basement. That addition only is an excavated crawl space, but there is no basement. It's clearly an addition, and it's different from the building. Nevertheless, historic and part of the viewscape of Montauk Highway. One of the things that the planning board was interested in finding out, and this again is perhaps more for the architectural review board, was the extent to which any of the referring boards would want to see additional landscaping. My personal feeling is that we wanted to leave it as is to keep the structure visible. There is a rather mature hedgerow on the Willow Street side that we would propose to keep because it's part of the character of the property at this point. But in terms of putting in additional screening in front of Montauk Highway, that's really something that we leave to the Landmarks Board and the ARB to put in their opinions, but we have not proposed any sort of screening. We would like to keep it visible. One of the criteria for a cannabis dispensary is whether or not it fits into the character of the community, and actually this building is perfect for that. So we intend to keep it as it is, just to make those ADA modifications on the westerly side.
Those ADA modifications, as I see your site plan, it looks like it's just going to be on the westerly side on that addition, not on the street-facing facade at all.
Correct. Nothing will change on the street-facing facade. There is no sign attached to the building. We will be reusing the existing location of the freestanding sign that you can see there on the survey, and that will go before the ARB, but the design scheme is 2 colors, black and white, which will match the existing black and white paint scheme that is currently throughout the building. It's very much, there will be minimal changes to the building itself other than those that are really required by law.
And I would agree with keeping the building very visible from Montauk Highway.
And I think it also, it's a beautiful building and it's part of an assemblage of other historic buildings, so there would be no reason to hide it. I do want to say, though, that the prior owner did a lovely restoration in keeping the wide plank flooring in several parts of the home, but many of the windows are not original windows. They are new. So that we're not changing any of the fenestration, but I did want to go on the record for the board to know that they're not historic windows.
What about the signage?
Yeah, the signage, there will be no signs affixed to the building. The only sign will be, there's a freestanding sign where there used to be a sign. That's it. I have copies if you want to see the sign, but it's just a basic sign. It'll say Hampton Premium Green, which will be the name of the dispensary. And, is that something the board wants to see? I have copies if you want to see what the sign will look like. I don't know if it made it into the referral pack that you received, so I thought,
Didn't see it.
yeah, no, that's fine. But I figured you might want to see it, so I brought it. This is the sign application that the ARB will have. I don't know if everyone wants a copy, but I brought enough.
It's time to build.
So it's just that, it's the black and white,
This is a non-illuminated sign.
non-illuminated. It's not illuminated now, and it won't be illuminated in the future. There we go. Any other questions?
Are there any thoughts by anyone on this? So this is a very old structure,
Yes, agreed.
most parts. And the location and the type of business hints at a fairly heavy trafficking of the building.
Well, actually, we have a traffic impact study that was submitted to the planning board.
I'm not talking specifically about the vehicle traffic,
Sure.
but the pedestrian traffic in the building that might have some effect with respect to wear and tear on the structure. And my observation about making commercial buildings out of something else is that often they're not successful in the first iteration of how they're going to arrange things for pedestrian movement and customers and the like. And that often leads to ad hoc activity associated with the building, which can be questionable in terms of the ultimate effect on the character of the building and its appearances. So that's one concern I have. I don't know if that strikes anybody else as a potential.
Well, I'd actually like to respond to that because this is a newer use for all of the land use boards to review. But one of the things that happens with a cannabis dispensary is that it actually has to be incredibly well thought out in terms of the interior layout, traffic flow, because it is very regulated, and there are all different requirements imposed by New York State. So part of our site plan application does include floor plans and elevations, and we are attempting to do very minimal changes to the building, but in terms of wear and tear to the interior and different things, we've thought about that. In fact, one of the rooms that I would say has the best preserved floors is not a room that will be heavily trafficked. Some of the floors have been done in certain parts. In fact, I think in the area that will probably be the most heavily used, the prior owner put in pergo floors. But we've looked at flow, traffic, right? There will be no one coming in and out of the Montauk Highway side. So really all of our ingress and egress traffic will be through that particular main entrance that we have on the westerly side. But I appreciate the comment because it is something we're thinking about, but it's something that in order to, get our interior floor plan to a point where it's approvable by New York State as well, we've given that some thought and care.
The second floor had prior use as a residential unit.
Correct. That use has to be abandoned under the town code, so it will become office space and storage. There are very minimal just interior changes. One is because of the abandoned residential use, we have to take out the cooktop and the cooking facilities. That's one of the ways that you indicate that you've abandoned residential use. But the walls aren't being changed. And then, the other main thing that will change is on the first floor, which is the existing staircase to the basement is about as wide as this podium and at an angle that is not safe for anyone to use. So that will be covered up, and a new staircase is proposed aligned with the existing staircase to get into that basement. And then we do also, there's, an interior closet that we're going to outfit with a dumbwaiter that goes between the second floor and the first floor for, secure moving of certain inventory. But it doesn't change any structural walls, and we'll have an engineer.
The interior structural pattern will remain for the rooms.
The rooms will remain laid out the way they are. Again, there is one, we're going through another existing closet where we'll create sort of and it's on the floor plan layout, just a channel from where our point of sale is to a secure room. But again, no load-bearing walls are being changed. None of the main walls are being changed. We're just actually using a closet that will turn into a secure passageway and corridor for staff. But it's not part of the retail floor space.
And with respect to the office space that's planned in the upper floor, that would be domestic office space, not office space rented to someone else.
No, we're not proposing any other tenants or uses. It'll be office space and storage space associated with the cannabis use.
Okay, any thoughts about anything here from my host?
What sort of security measures will need to be added to this building because of the change of use?
Very few, because the prior owner already installed cameras throughout the building. I don't know if that went before this board, but you can see them in some of the photos. There are those little white security cameras. They're already there at all points. The state regulations state that, your landscaping shouldn't be to the point where people can hide behind it. We don't really have that. The perimeter landscaping around the building is all low hydrangeas. There are no places for anyone to hide, and it's more about the security of staff at night when they close and that sort of idea. But we have appropriate amount of parking illumination pursuant to, again, it's all dark sky compliant, provides a certain amount of illumination as required under the code, but the building already has cameras. And then, of course, there will be an interior security plan of cameras. There's usually, biometric readers and different things for secure storage areas so that, again, in case you've ever been to any of the other dispensaries that are now running in like Riverhead, for say, as an example, there's a very clear delineation and security in terms of where the public can go and where staff can go.
There's not going to be any bars on windows or?
No, we're not proposing anything like that. Yeah, no, there is talk, and the applicant may come before you at a different time to use a stronger window material that looks just like glass but is more impact resistant. But again, if you look at the layout of the building and the height of the grade, because it's sloping, a lot of the first floor isn't necessarily readily accessible.
So one aspect of this building is not a landmark. But it should be a landmark. And I would like to see the owners interested in that. And I would propose for my colleague board members here that we respond to the planning board with the suggestion that one of the conditions be that the building be landmarked officially by the town of Southampton. It has been on a target list for a while. Target is the wrong word, but
No, I understand. I've read it. It's been part of the historic Hamlet resources study and everything else. So I understand where the board is going with this. I'd have to discuss it with my client, but again, one of the things that my client and I discussed early on was that this was a historic building and it made the most sense to keep it. I don't know if that can be achieved simply by the landmarking process or if a facade easement. I mean, a lot of the facade. The prior owner put on, lighting and hardware that I would not necessarily say is period exact, but the rest of the structure, right, on the whole remains a historic resource for the town. So I think that, whatever it is that the board recommends, the applicant has throughout this whole process been amenable to considering it and discussing it. So I don't know if it's just merely landmarking that you're thinking of. I think that we would be amenable to that. But again, I would have to discuss it with my client.
Okay, but I think with respect to a suggestion to the planning board, is that something that's reasonable from us? I will say that the 1999 comprehensive plan suggests that the planning board and the ZBA actually help in historic preservation of the town. And unfortunately, in the 25 years that has not occurred. And the question is, they've become more concerned recently.
Of course.
Beginning to get responsiveness from both the ZBA and the planning board with respect to attention, rather than just checking off different changes in the circumstances of a particular property, which before, for many years, they were just automatically almost approved. So I think probably both with your consultation with your client and in the discussions with the planning board that you might have, that might also help. So
I appreciate that.
I thank you for providing the information and for coming. It always helps to get tidbits sometimes that are missing.
Sure.
And this is a major new face to that very old building that will be taking place. So we'll all be extra concerned about it.
I understand. I think my clients intend to be good stewards of the property, and I think it'll be good to have an active business in there because it's been sort of vacant and fallow for a long time. And old buildings need constant care, right? So,
So, okay, well.
thank
all
you.
right, thank you, and we'll send a communication back to the planning board.
Have a good night.
Now, we also have 520 Montauk Highway on our agenda. Just to provide a recap of the context for that discussion. In April of last year, the Landmarks Board initiated the process for landmarking 520 Montauk Highway, Shinnecock Hills, on the basis of the recommendation that the construction of the house and its ownership made it historically significant and of value. It has been part of the Grosvenor Atterbury estate, and the house had been earlier built about 1883 or so. But in any case, and Atterbury's ownership as a distinguished architect of some repute had owned the property, and after his death it had passed into various hands and been developed. But in any case, that was in April. In May, the Peconic Land Trust applied for a demolition permit, and in the discussion that took place about landmarking and demolition, the formula that seemed to be easy to accommodate the interests for both preservation and for having the property restored to a natural state, that the house be relocated to a property not very far away, also on Montauk Highway. And that was in July of 2024, the town board approved a resolution saying that it will be designated a landmark upon successful relocation to that neighboring property that had been identified for the relocation. Subsequent to that, the discussion over relocation did not successfully turn out. The questions of whether or not it should have been otherwise are, now history, and it is now at the point when we received recently the completion of the application for demolition with an engineering report, which was very thorough by Cash and Associates of Hop Hog, I believe. They Hop Hog. And that described the structure as being a sound structure with cosmetic deficiencies, essentially, partly in part from not having been occupied for a period of time and not being tended to in terms of maintenance for the past couple of years. So what we have to decide tonight in response to the completion of the application, one, we declared the application incomplete Is it the consensus of the board that the material provided makes for a complete application? Is that, okay. So then that takes us to the question of what would it be our response to the building department on the application. And given my lead for having evaluated this project, I myself find that we should object to the demolition of the house and return that opinion to the building department. But before I go on too much, is there other thoughts about this in terms of the issues that are involved?
So I understand that it's a complicated, long history with this property. My personal feeling is that the thousands of years of history and the significance of this cultural site outweigh the preservation efforts for the structure itself, just given what we don't know and how much more is underneath. So personally, I would just disagree.
I would say after seeing the engineer's report and seeing how much of the structure had been altered with the complete report, I'm also leaning towards that as well.
What you're saying is that it's been altered out of its original historic form.
I feel so, yes.
I was just wondering if anyone from the board has made a site visit or taken photos, as we do so many places. I guess I was hoping to get a structural engineer's report versus just several photographs, that there may be other aspects to the house that, other than the several photos that we saw.
Well, I think we did get a competent structural engineer's report indicating actually some surprising things, including steel girders that are in the house as well. So any other thoughts?
I think it ought to be put on its own little reservation. It's just the size and footprint of the house. Walkway going out on the road. I think then everybody wins.
Yeah.
There's a lot of property there. It's been heavily modified over the years. It looks like craters on the moon, a lot of that property. Where they've been digging and stuff, so it's been heavily affected. And I would suggest the least part that's been affected is where the house is sitting. Badly have to lose it. I'm surprised that I'm so accustomed to engineers' reports, these kind of reports, coming back with every negative thing on the planet. Why it's absolutely impossible to save the building. And that's not the case with this one. It doesn't seem to be. But what it is.
There was some discussion also about disturbing, the concerns about disturbing the soil and the historical factor. It's a great concern. Consider that even
The soil was disturbed when they put the house there. I mean,
Hi, sorry, just make sure the mic is on.
There we are. So I think if you want to present your solution again, I don't think it's been
well,
heard.
the issue about the soil being disturbed, the whole site's disturbed. I mean, it's amazing the amount of rooting around and digging that's taken place there. And the least of which is where the house sits, and that was obviously disturbed, but you can't undisturb it because it's, I mean, unless you just fill a hole where the house was, it's not going to take it back to its whatever original condition it was. fairly important, I think, house. It was a very nice design and early early for, it's not something that's put up in the 40s. And so I'd hate to see it lost. It was a very nice design, but what it is.
I agree with you about the engineering report being unusually subjective and dedicated to a professional truth.
Yeah.
Whereas we have often seen opinions purchased.
It makes me think I might want to work with those guys in the future.
Where you get a client's opinion well woven into a professional report. I was struck by it as well. My concern about it was the fact that the process of relocation was basically made impossible for anything to happen. The conditions that were set out were that you couldn't move it one way on the property. You could only move it another way on the property. And that movement in itself was premised upon a lot of other things, including proving that the site to which it was going to be relocated to was free of any cultural artifacts that might be there, which presents real problems for anybody to prove a negative. So to me, the demolition description, which I'm not sure is the official one that would be followed, that is in one of the reports that was presented, indicates lots of disturbance of the soil, lots of movement of material around the property, and yet there was the objection that moving that building in a certain way would disturb the soil in ways that were more dramatic than the actual demolition process that takes place. And that, to me, really represents the problem here, that there was less than a good faith approach to undertaking the relocation process. And that's why I would myself come to the idea that we should at least register an opposition to this process, because it was not carried out in a way that seemed reasonable to the intention of relocating it. And I agree with the idea that this is a place of significance for a community of Southampton town that basically is one that should be elevated in significance. But the terms under which it says it has evolved, it seems to me, has kind of tarnished the process.
I'm a little confused. Are we then, or are you considering requesting an alternative approach to relocating the house so that it can be preserved on an alternate site?
Well,
and that the spiritual aspect of the grounds itself remain untouched?
The alternatives, from what I can understand, there are no alternatives to relocating the house, given the conditions that were set for the relocation by the Peconic Land Trust. So that basically is a static situation. The only ideal alternative that was suggested to put pressure on a relocation of the house was to request the town board to reconsider their motion and provide for the prospect of landmarking it in place, as was an original intention. So, but that carries with it, unanticipated consequences as well. So, anyway, John, you wanted to say something?
Yes, do I need to push this or no?
We can
It's
hear
on,
you.
okay. Well, I'm John Halsey, president of the Peconic Land Trust. And first of all, I want to thank you for what you did last year to allow this to be landmarked only upon its relocation. I also want to, just before I go through my statement here, I think it's always appropriate. It's now my custom to acknowledge that we are meeting on ancestral land of the Shinnecock people who've occupied this land for over 400 generations. And I say this as a 12th generation of Thomas and Phoebe Halsey among the English settlers who came here in 1640. So I care about both sides here. I care about my own family's history, but I also care deeply about the history of the Shinnecock people. So Peconic is the current owner of 520 Montauk Highway. The property is also is ancestral land of Shinnecock people, as we know, as is all of Shinnecock Hills. 520 Montauk Highway is part of Sugarloaf Hill, which is considered the most sacred to the Shinnecock people. And this is why the Peconic Land Trust purchased the property now nearly 3 years ago, to really protect it for what it is, a burial ground, and to restore it to a maritime grassland environment. While we own the property, we co-manage it with the Neomuk Land Trust. It's a new indigenous-led 501c3 conservation organization, and I hope to be the eventual owner of this property, as well as the summit of Sugarloaf, where the documented burials go back 3,000 years. Neither Peconic nor Neomuk have any interest in this house, given its present location and the historic context wherein it sits. As described in the archaeological management plan prepared by Dr. Allison McGovern and submitted to this board, this property is best understood as an extension of the Sugarloaf Hill site, and as such must be understood as a cemetery containing unmarked graves. Because the boundaries of the Sugarloaf Hill Cemetery site have never been defined through archaeological survey or ground-penetrating radar, all surrounding properties, including 520 Montauk Highway, have the highest potential for the presence of human burials, crematory, and artifacts of sacred meaning, regardless of the ground disturbances in the 19th, 20th, and 21st centuries. The plan recommends that no archaeological investigations of any kind be conducted on the former Sillerman property unless they are associated with the reburial, repatriation, or any other Shinnecock traditional cultural practices. As an extension of the Sugarloaf Hill mortuary and burial site, this property is a place of great cultural and spiritual significance to the Shinnecock people. It is an intergenerational site that encompasses tens of thousands of years of history, thus connecting present Shinnecock people with a deep sense of place and culture. And I'll just remind you that until we acquired this property and Sugarloaf Hill Summit, Shinnecock people had not been on these sites since 1859. And I can tell you, when we closed on the summit, the disbelief of the Shinnecock people who were there at that moment was palpable, and I just can't stress how much this property means to them, and the fact that they have walked on it. As disturbed as it is their history, and again, that they have not been on since 1859. So the management and use of the property should remain consistent with the historical character and prior use of the property as a burial site by Indigenous people. Unfettered public accessibility would be detrimental to the landscape, its sacred meaning, and its sacred cultural resources. And the town has acknowledged the significance of this property by inclusion in the towns of Southampton's Cultural Resources Protection Overlay and the town's Sugarloaf Hill Shinnecock Burial Ground Critical Environmental Area. So the town itself has designated this as something unique and worthy of protection. Yet we have recognized that some in this community would like to see the house preserved. So in June of 2024, we asked interested neighbors to submit a proposal in which they would first describe a route and method of relocation for the house that does not include crossing the property of 520 Montauk Highway. It's not impossible to move that down the private roads of the association. It's just that it is very costly to do so, because there's going to have to be excavation and restoration of the land. They're going to have to take down more poles for the house to be moved. But it can happen. It can be done. But its cost would be substantially more than bringing that property across 520. And moving it across that burial ground to the Shinnecock people that we're working with is of utmost, it's very problematic after all that has happened to that property. We also asked that the plan include a plan to minimize disturbance around the current house site during the relocation process. We did also ask them to include a means to document there are no burial sites on the destination property that would be disturbed by the relocation of the house. Yeah, that's a tall order, but it's really just outside the boundary of this critical environmental area and cultural resource protection area. We didn't say how, but we thought that would open up a conversation for the use of ground penetrating radar as an alternative to digs. We thought that could be something we could all learn from if they would go through a process like that. And finally, we asked them to commit to provide the financial support necessary to restore the former house site at 520 Montauk Highway based on a mutually agreed upon plan. So we felt this was pretty reasonable given, again, the context of this house in this location and the respect that was due to all that had happened to this property since it was out of their hands since 1859. Tremendous disturbance, absolutely. So we did receive several proposals for consideration, but none of them fully addressed the terms that we defined. They were not happy that we didn't accept them, but they all included crossing 520 Montauk Highway to some extent, one extent or another. One was completely through it. Another was less so, given its location, but still on 520 Montauk Highway. So as such, we continued to provide the information necessary for the demolition. So that's why we went forward with the engineer's report and other information. And since this property is a burial ground in custom law and regulation, we really feel that it should be respected for what it is, given its significance to the Shinnecock people, and that the house should be removed. I want to just read 4 points that Dr. McGovern, who was unable to be here, she's got children that are on spring break. So we said, you don't even have to Zoom. We understand. But first, her first point was that the archaeological management plan does outline the archaeological history of the property. Specifically, it presents a history of all the archaeological work done to date at the site. Number two, that the cost of restoring and maintaining the building are cost prohibitive and beyond the scope of the intended conservation of the property and the management of the archaeological resources as proposed in the archaeological management plan. Third, that the presence of the building on the property negatively impacts the integrity of the sacred site. It just does. And fourth, that conditions have been outlined in the archaeological management plan for the controlled demolition of the building that minimizes any impacts to the archaeological and sacred site. So, in short, we do hope that you will consider allowing us to move forward with the demolition of this house, given the unique circumstances that we're presented with. And I thank you for your consideration. And again, I thank you for enabling that step last year to explore these other options. So thanks. And any questions for me?
Just as a point.
Yeah.
Any opinion about objecting to demolition will have no bearing on the issue of a permit for demolition. The building department is not bound by our opinion.
Well, that's comforting, but by the same token,
in fact, there has never been.
Yeah.
The building department has never taken our objections into account.
Well, I guess though that you also said though that you could recommend to the town board to consider landmarking the property in place, and that would be I think a sad occasion.
Myself, I would not favor that, but
okay. So I think that given what we're dealing with here and its significance, I think we should remove the house. But again, thanks for your consideration.
I had just a couple questions. Has anybody been in contact with any of the local house moving businesses? I assume somebody has on the process.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I didn't see them named in the report unless I missed it.
No, and there are two, that are proficient at it.
I'm not naming.
And I don't know that I'll name, but yes, one was contacted and did provide estimates, and we in turn have also talked with them about, again, the viability of actually moving it a different way, albeit more expensive.
Then I would suggest maybe talking to the second one to see if anybody else or any other means that would provide for it being moved with the least amount. I mean, and I'm not in the business, it almost looks like it should slide down that hill very quickly, but that's just somebody without the expertise. But maybe for one thing, is to check with the other one. And the second one is, and I'm not sure if Ed's interested, the possibility of a site visit to see the structure and possibly, do the photographs, documentation.
Yeah, documentation of it before it's demolished would absolutely be happy to accommodate that for sure.
Those are my two questions.
Okay, thanks.
I have a question about
Sure.
the demolition.
Yeah.
There's not a lot of detail in the AMP about the kind of demolition. All is mentioned in here is parking of vehicles, heavy machinery, dumpsters. Could you describe the actual demolition process that is proposed here?
Well, I'm not an expert on demolition, so it's hard for me to do that. All I can tell you is that I've observed the demolition of the house that was on Sugarloaf Summit. Now, that was a much newer house, but it was done very, very carefully so as not to impact the area around it. And in fact, that site, did have and does have, documented remnants of a crematory pit dating back 3,000 years. So I think the same care, we would be working with the same company that helped us at the summit. And again, I won't name names, but they were exceedingly careful and respectful of the site, that they understood the significance of this. The representatives of the Neum Land Trust and Graves Protection Warrior Society were present during the demolition. So it was done with great care, and that would be the situation with this as well.
Have you given any thought to manual deconstruction and salvage of materials with this building, which would not necessarily involve any heavy machinery in proximity to the structure?
Yeah, we haven't found anyone interested in doing that. That's of course a much more costly process from what I understand, and so we have reached out to some salvage people, but we have not had any interest in this thus far.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Sorry, I have another question.
Sure.
If the demolition happens, has there been a discussion about recording of any type of covenant to protect the land from ever being developed again?
Oh yes. Well, we hope to be working with the town on the sale of development rights on this property. So that similar situation as we did with Sugarloaf, that was a joint project with the town. So yes, we want to make sure that this is permanently protected.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Any other questions for John? No?
Okay, thanks again.
Thanks for coming and comments. So, as I mentioned, whatever our opinion is in terms of delivering a response to the building department, it probably will not have any impact at all on the issuance of a demolition permit. It will be issued, no matter what we say. So, any thoughts about this?
We're going about the request for the engineer's report. I think that was still pending whenever we reviewed this the last time, unless we waive it. So I was wondering how that.
We have the engineer's report. It was sent out. So.
Yeah. An engineer's report?
Yeah.
Okay, then somehow did I miss? I have the archaeological reports, but somehow.
It was emailed.
Okay.
So, and basically that was to declare the application complete. So, But again, my perspective on this was that there was not the great effort to allow for relocation, that there was much more finding reasons why it couldn't be done rather than to facilitate it. And despite all, I have not been in contact with the neighbors who were originally involved in this, so I didn't get their side of the story. I did get, the Peconic Land Trust did provide the email correspondence they had with them, which basically was recapitulating the conditions for possible relocation. So that's the extent of my knowledge of what's taken place. So is there a motion one way or the other with respect to sending a response back with no objection or with objection? So I'll make a motion then to respond with objection to the demolition. Is there a second? Is that a second? Second from Larry. Discussion? No, not hearing. Susan?
I agree.
I don't even know what this house looks like. Can you see it from the road?
You cannot see it from the road, no. It's
Okay.
Well obscured.
Okay, well, I think
If it
bears
moves,
thinking of.
you will likely see it.
Or
If it's moved closer, you will see it.
Well, the idea is to get it off that property, right?
right, yeah, that basically was the issue.
I think that while it's somewhat disturbing to me that the overriding concern in moving and preserving any materials and in demolition is cost. I still think that the overriding issue is the spiritual connection to this property, the historical value to the Shinnecock peoples that, as much as I love historic preservation, I think has to take precedence.
Any other further comment? Okay. Well, those in favor of the motion to send a report back that says object, raise your hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Those opposed? 1, 2, 3. Okay. Motion is carried, and that's the form we'll send back to the building department probably within a week or so, and they'll mail you the permit.
I'm sorry, Ed. Someone just raised their hand on Zoom to talk. If it's not too late.
Somebody has online.
That's right.
Is the suspense killing anybody?
Oh, I'm sorry, can you hear me?
We can hear somebody, yes.
Okay. My name is Jennifer E. Cuffey Wilson. I'm Shinnecock Montauk. And I wanted to speak because what I was hearing was very disturbing to me. Because the land that you are talking about is very sacred. And I know that it's not sacred to everybody, but it is sacred to my people. For the house to be moved in any way, shape, or form, it would still be intentional desecration. And that is not good. The whole area of Shinnecock Hills is sacred to us and has been sacred to us in memoriam. And the fact that we are still discussing this is it breaks my heart, because my ancestors have been asking us to fight for them, and that is what we're doing. We're fighting for them. And we're also fighting for our next 7 generations. And in actuality, we are fighting for you. Because if you keep destroying the land, there will be nothing here for any of us. For any of us. Now, we have been here and we have been fighting, and we will continue to fight. Graves Protection Warrior Society has been fighting for over 30 years. And we just started with our Dear Muckland Trust. And we are going to continue to fight, because this land is so much more than just a piece of land. It is sacred. And the areas that you're talking about, we have been speaking about this for hundreds of years, but you're not listening to us, and you're still not listening to us. When will enough be enough? That's one of my questions. Is when will enough be enough? Why does it have to keep building and building and building and tearing down the trees and destroying the land and poisoning the waters and not leaving anything for the animals to be able to survive and live? When will enough be enough? I guess it'll be enough when you have your transportation to the moon or to Mars, where you can do your move up there. Then it'll be enough. That means down here will be extinction completely. Is that when enough will be enough? I don't want that for my next 7 generations, and I don't want it for yours, because it doesn't have to be. It doesn't have to be. Why can't we enjoy what Mother Earth has put down for us? Why? So as a Shinnecock Montauk Indigenous woman, I'm done. I am so done. And I will fight until the day that the Creator opens up his arms for me. I will continue to fight. That's all I wanted to say.
Could you say your name again, please?
Jennifer E. Cuffey, Cuffee Wilson, Wilson. And yes, my name Cuffey is one of the descendants of the 1640.
Okay, thank you for your comments. So with that, I think we can proceed with our agenda. I believe there might be someone else online, perhaps. For one 194 Sagaponack Road, Bridgehampton.
Is this Zachary?
Zachary, yes.
All right, they put their hand up. Okay.
Good evening, everyone.
We can hear you.
Okay, I'll start. I'm here tonight, Zachary Antoletti, counsel for the applicant and the property owner at 194 Sagaponack Road, Bridgehampton. I'm here on a demo permit application to demolish the existing structures on the house, which are a two-story wood frame single-family residence, a shed, and a garage. Structures are believed to have been built before 1941, which is why before we're here you today. We've submitted a report with a structural engineer's report regarding the existing structures. I don't know if you had a chance to review it. Based on my communications with Mr. Wisnowski earlier, I know a report was not prepared, but from the photos, I think it's our position is that the house does not really possess any architectural significance. It's a very simple rectangular mass structure with a side gabled roof. There's standard double hung windows that are kind of irregularly spaced around the house. We think the porch may have been added at a later point. You can see in the photos that the materials don't really match the rest of the house. The architecture, the columns don't match on the house. As for the history of the house, it looks like for most of, it's unclear when exactly it was built, but it looks like it was probably sometime before 1941. The property was owned for most of the 20th century by the Kozinski family before my clients purchased it. And if you've read the structural engineer's report, the house is in quite poor condition currently. There's visible cracks throughout the foundation. Uneven settlement. There's water intrusion. It looks like the house has not really been maintained. I think it was the former owners, I don't know if they were living there too much towards the end, and I think they assumed this would eventually be demolished. There's hazards throughout the house in terms of wiring, and water intrusion everywhere. Mildew in the basement, so it's not really, there's nothing really worth saving. As for the shed and the garage, they're kind of very simple utilitarian structures. I don't think there's anything significant about those. So I don't know if, like you said, I know a report wasn't prepared. If the board has any questions, I'm happy to answer them or get you any more information, but we'd request it if you could, based on the information you have before you, to recommend no objection to the demo permit application to the building department.
So as you can see, the windows in the building are replacement windows. The floors are suffering from moisture and from below in the basement. And I think the engineering report suggests that some of the interior of the basement is not structurally sound. There's also associated with this the outbuildings, a garage and a shed that would be replaced. The reference to owners, I did some preliminary research on this building, and the Koshensky family owned it from about the 1920s to probably, I think, about 1960 or so, when the senior person died. Most of the family moved away for dispersed, except that a son, who was a mechanical engineer for Allied Chemical, came back and presumably inherited the house. I didn't check the whole story out. Before that, I did find that the house was on a 1916 map under the name Nellie Hull. And she bought the property about 1913 or 14 or so, the lot, and presumably she might have been the builder of the house. She was a single person, so if you look at the house, what I suspect was this was the original volume of the house, and this with the flared roof was an addition later on, when it's impossible to tell, but when I went to see the house, it was the landscape around was filled with blossoming daffodils, and at some point there must have been raised garden plots in the back for the previous owners who might have been there. But the house is deteriorated. We didn't receive all the paperwork until today. The funneling process through the building department and the landmarks board is awkward, and so an owner's endorsement was missing, and so that's why it said pending on the agenda. And we were waiting for that to show up, and it finally came about today. I don't think that there is much to indicate of a historic person in this house. When you get to the house, it's been obscured by landscaping, so it's very hard to see. The interior of the house is modest. It looks like that. The cellar was concrete block masonry, so that indicates kind of the period when it would be built. I was going to put off the review of this until May 20th, but I don't know. I'm comfortable in terms of not having done the full 9 yards of research that could be done, but that there is little of historic significance to this house. The persons who owned it, the original Nellie Hull, she was a spinster, and when the Koshensky family, who were migrants from Poland, in 1911, they came here, and in 1923 they bought the house and lived in it for many years, and they had at least half, I think 5 children, maybe 6 children, so that might explain when an addition might have been put onto the house, a very small house originally. And all of the family were accomplished. There are no Kaczynskis around that I know of anymore. They all went on to either spread their wings in other communities, apparently in educated occupations that they found access to. So without historic persons and what you see here, I did have pictures that were there. And didn't see anything of great merit. The property is very deep, but very narrow in character. So I don't know what the plan is for replacement housing. Do you know what kind of replacement house might be proposed?
I don't know. Obviously, it will be a larger house to fit a more modern family. But I would want to say that the former owner was a professional gardener, and the lands are beautifully landscaped. They're very mature gardens, and the owners do plan on preserving as much of the landscaping as possible. They're gonna there's a lot of mature trees that are gonna be moved and replanted, and so as much of the original landscape, really beautiful landscaping that exists there is going to remain. And I think that's that's the most beautiful and important aspect of the property, in my opinion, and that will be preserved to the extent possible to fit around the new site plan.
Okay, so if my sense is to respond with no objection to it, and I will make a little report of my notes to accompany it from the level of research that I've done to this point, but we'll have the official review tonight and consider it finished business.
Yeah, I think, Ed, that's my only concern here is when we have a demolition and we're losing the structure, whatever its historic value. I think it's important to have that report in our files because that will be the last record of this house and its history.
Right.
So, yeah, thank you.
Good point. And so I will put that report together too. So, well, thank you for enduring the previous hour and a half of our adventures tonight. So.
Oh no, I thank you, and thank you for fitting us in.
Okay, very good. So with that, we can find our way back to things other than demolition. 4 Cricket Path, Remsenburg. And you delivered something to us. For Cricket Path,
Well, I think I did.
And let's see if I can pull up your report. Oh. Oh, do you want to just summarize things, Larry, or?
Yeah, well, essentially, I tagged along with Bill and Stephanie Davis to look at this property at number 4 Cricket Path, Remsenburg, New York. And of course, our job is to figure out what, if any, history there is related to the site, as well as condition of the structure. Structures are on the property. And a lot of this I probably won't go into unless we have a specific need for it. I'm reading off of Bill's work here. The property is located on the north side of Cricket Path. It's a one-lane road connected to Remsen Lane on the west. This was originally a farming area for cows and crops and things. It relates to the Tuttle family. And the Tuttle family farming in that area says here goes on from the late 1700s to the 1800s. And we have some nice historic maps here that locate where the roads, as they gradually developed, where they were located. And then I have some very good aerial photographs that show the undeveloped, it seemed like it, farmland undeveloped with no structures on. And I'm not clear on, from reading this, it looks like there was a structure perhaps there in 1900, but then we're talking about structures being built in the 1930.
Yeah, the 1930 aerial, which is up on the screen there, shows that there was no structure on the property at the time, but immediately to the west there is what appears to be a structure on an area that is now wooded and with second growth vegetation at this point. So it's possible that the structure, at least the original volume of the structure at 4 Cricket Path, was moved from the adjoining property at some point after 1930, but we really don't know.
So we have on the site currently, there's basically 2 structures that are hooked together with some appendages around the perimeter. And then there's a separate, what appears to be a tool shed with a really tired wood shingle roof on it, and a garage. And we didn't pay any particular attention to the garage. The tool shed didn't appear to be all that old, although it had a really aged wood shingle roof on it that's been on there a very long time. And there was nothing, I don't recall anything particularly noteworthy architecture-wise about the structures. The older of the 2 structures, if you're looking at that photo, would be on the right. And has a shed dormer inflicted on the back of it. And there's very little other than going down when we were in the basement, we could see some timber posts, or at least one timber post that was holding up the floor system along with some cinder blocks. And I guess the only noteworthy thing inside the house was some heavy timber that had been salvaged from somewhere and moved in. And they were unusual in the fact that the beams running across a very large open living room were, excuse me, they were extremely heavy, and they were hand hewn, but usually when things like this are salvaged, you see mortises cut into them, or notches cut out, or gains, or whatever put into them. And those weren't present. So wherever those came from, it had to have been a large structure, perhaps a large barn.
Yeah, the owner was telling us they came from a barn in Pennsylvania.
Yeah, I knew that. You mentioned Pennsylvania. I didn't hear about the barn, but that would make some sense, because usually there's cuts and notches and all kinds of things put in. So there was those. Then there was a series of posts with mortise and tin braces set into them, and those were nice. They were kind of unusual because they they were pinned with wooden tree nails, but the holes weren't drilled all the way through. It's sort of unusual to see blind pin joints like that, because usually the pins go all the way through and they're driven in real tight. But so anyway, that, as far as I can tell, is about the most noteworthy. Do you see anything, Bill, that you?
I think you got it covered.
The framing that you're talking about is in the 1999 edition, and they're not proposing any work for that portion of the structure.
And there's a porch enclosure proposed for the what would be, let's see, the west side, and there's a brick patio currently. It's a nice lot. Then not much else to I can think of to say about it. I mean, the family bought it, going to fix it up, and I'm sure they'll be happy living there. It's on the bill summary here, he was saying that the dwelling was developed at some point between 1930 and 45, with later added garage and his little shed structure. And all the site, these buildings have gone through a bunch of renovations, and it's not listed on the town's 2014 survey of historic resources and local historic references. So our consensus is that it doesn't really meet any of the consideration to be considered a landmark under the town of Southampton's A through C list of requirements. I think that's, unless you guys have anything, I don't have much else to say about it.
There's nothing special about this house, other than it being unusual in its front entrance areas. So, nice.
Lady, so what she teaches, BOCES, did she say?
Yeah.
Yeah, quite happy to, their family's quite happy to have this house, and I'm sure it'll make it a fine little house. It doesn't look like it's going to fall over. The roof doesn't appear to be leaking, and no broken pipes that any of us can discern. So I'm sure it'll be nice for the family.
So there's no problem, no objection with this application. So do we have a sense of who might file the paperwork?
Larry, I will get you a copy of the form.
So you're going to teach him?
I will show you how to fill it out.
Yeah.
And you can do that manually.
Okay.
So we're having a learning experience.
We have one tutorial already over at my house. We need one more.
Oh, that's what you think. It's only one more. Yeah.
Well, I didn't say how long it was going to be.
So, okay. And 4 is the lucky number here. 4 Rogers Lane, Remsenburg. And this is a project in which Bill wishes to be excused. Recused, not excused. And we will.
I circulated a copy of a report concerning this property I think it was over the weekend. The report actually focuses not only on the history of this particular property, but the history of the adjoining property at 139 South Country Road, because it all used to be one property, owned originally likely by members of the Rogers family. For many years, it was likely part of a farm. Rogers Lane is right next door. The Rogers family is one of the families that earlier settled our community, Spionk at the time, Remsenburg now. And this is probably a descendant of one of the first Rogers settlers in the community who likely built this house at 139, not on the subject property. The property stayed in Rogers family ownership for a number of years, but in about 1930, there is a record of a mortgage between Ida Rogers Hulse, who was the last owner, Rogers owner of the property, and a Mrs. R.A. Phillipson, who was a recent widow from New York City. And she bought the whole property at about that time. She lived in the main house at 139 South Country Road, but she had a daughter who got married in 1938, and she had the house at the subject property at 4 Rogers Lane constructed at that time. And the original volume of the house is still there. At some point around 1945, she had the house had an addition put on the house, and it became used as the chauffeurs and maids' quarters at that time. It had a 3-car garage off one end of the house, which remains there to this day. And at that point, they had another wing put on the house, the east wing of the house, and the house assumed more or less the form it has today. There was a dormer put on the second story of the east wing in more recent years. And what's proposed at this point in time is some changes to the house that will update its systems, that will add some additional living space in the interior, and basically make it a more functional house than it is right now. I went through it with Bill and with the owner. The owner, by the way, is Steve Kenny. Steve and Marsha Kenny own this house. And their daughter has recently purchased the house at 139. So the whole property is back in the same family ownership. And it's, I think, our hope that they will eventually request landmarking of this house plus the house at 139 up front. So what's proposed here is a number of changes on all facades of the house. And in the report, what I did is I put in side-by-side photograph of the existing condition and then the proposed elevations. I think if we could start with, okay, you're in Bill's report right now. Could you go to the report that I did, please?
Okay. Let's see if I have.
Those are very helpful.
Yeah, I find them quite useful. Yeah, there you go. If you could scroll down to the current
elevations?
photos, yeah. There we go. So this is the front facade of the house. It's visible from Rogers Lane and partially visible from our main street as being behind 139. And you can see the main volume of the house in the middle is going to essentially remain unchanged. The dormers will stay there, the windows will stay. On the right-hand side, there is a 3-car garage now. That is going to be converted to living space. But instead of having just regular wall on the outside, what Bill has designed is a series of panels that essentially look like the old double swinging out garage doors that used to be there. On the left-hand side is a wing that extends out to the east, and there's a really awkward corner that you'll see on the next set of elevations. It's proposed to fill in that corner to give a little bit more living space, so now that thing will extend all the way across the front rather than being cut off. This is that really awkward corner, and how they brought all those roof lines together, I have no idea. But Bill's design is to fill this in. There's a little tiny window up top, which is actually not historic. It was added by the Kennys. That's in the bathroom. That's going to be reused and put on the shed dormer on the top of the east wing there. The little vertical slit in the side of the main volume of the house, which is a ventilation unit, is going to stay there. But many of the windows are going to get redone on this particular elevation. There are going to be solar panels on the second floor roof on the wing. This side of the building, by the way, is not visible at all from either street. So you will not see, you'll see from the front the extension to fill this corner, but you will not see that dormer and the solar panels on the roof. The biggest changes are in the back of the building, which is on the next page. Side of the building is not visible from either street. And what's happening here is that on the right-hand side, there is a porch that was enclosed. You can see where the tall windows are on the right-hand side there. That's going to get rebuilt more as a living space, and the long doors are going to get replaced by more normal windows. The two little doghouse dormers up top are going to be replaced with a shed dormer that goes across, and then the wing that kind of connects those two volumes is also going to have a shed dormer on it. There will be a metal roof on this side of the building. Again, it's not visible from the street. And there will be solar panels on the upper roofs here as well. You can see on the left-hand side of the building where the garage is now, you have a very low sloping roof and a couple of really small windows up at the top. That area is getting raised up, and you'll see full height windows there when the building is redone. Again, it's a lot of change on this side of the building. Having been through the building, it's going to make it much more functional space, much more connected to the outdoors. And it is not, again, visible at all from a public street. And then there's the last side, which is the west side of the building facing Rogers Lane. That's this side here. You can see the garage in the foreground. When you look at the elevation down below, that's essentially going to be the same, except you'll have the dormer on the back that will raise it a bit, and you'll have two windows in that side instead of the one. They're, again, keeping that vertical ventilation slit just as they are on the main volume of the house. And you can see the windows. They're going to keep one on the main volume, and instead of the two small ones, they're going to have one larger one up there. The only thing that is going to be definitely different looking from this dimension is you can see in the background there, the east wing that extends out, you can see the metal roof, and you will be able to see that metal roof from Rogers Lane. So that's the only thing I found a little bit jarring in this, in that that's not in keeping with the general historic character of the house. So I think Bill's done a pretty good job here of updating, modernizing this house without losing its essential character, especially the character that's visible from the two streets. So I don't have any objection to what's proposed here in these plans. It's going to keep the house, functional for a much longer time than it would be otherwise. And it's going to correct a lot of things that are really kind of awkward inside in terms of low ceilings and very narrow hallways and difficulty getting through the structure to actually use it. So it's my hope that, when the work is done, that the family will consider landmarking, and hopefully it will be a structure that we can consider landmarking.
It's in very good condition. And the shingles, the wall shingles are fascinating because it's been carefully sanded and painted so many times that they look like clappers. You don't see the vertical cracks. And the building doesn't get enough moisture to make those shingles expand and contract and blow the paint off. So it's I hardly ever see that. So
Yeah.
they're well maintained.
They're also going to keep the shutters. The shutters will be reused.
They're wood shutters.
Yes.
Operating.
Operating, yes, with holdbacks. The butterfly holdbacks. They're really kind of cool. Yep, and on pintles so they can come in. Yep.
So, 1, very nice report.
Thank you.
2, the graphic contrasting elements you put together is great. I know how much work goes into manufacturing that because I've done it a couple times myself and found myself wanting for sleep.
Well, Bill did a great job with the application and putting in the information he knew that we would need.
Well, that's very good, and I do not have any comments. Again, the metal roof issue sits there, gestating new architectural component for obviously the entire landscape. 20 years ago when I used to take the back roads through upstate New York and see these farmhouses and being taken care of, suddenly, and these were routes that I was so familiar with for 30 years, and suddenly there's this metal roof over here, and then down the road there's that metal, all on historic farmhouses and the barns as well. So it's obviously a great change beginning to take place.
Mm-hmm.
I'll tell you what a big change was. If you see, particularly upstate New York, the barns and houses, both is where they start out with timber frame structures, 1700s, wood shingle roofs, but then as soon as they, let's say 1830s, started mining slate, all these buildings got slate inflicted on them, and it made them, a lot of them I worked on have lasted this length of time with very little maintenance because they had slate. But on the other hand, the ones that they failed to add more structure underneath them collapsed under the weight.
Yeah.
And so it's funny how these trends work.
So, okay, no objection, and again, compliments on the quality of the report and presentation. All right, 21 Whitfield Road, North Sea. Jeff, you had some comments that...
Yeah, I'm sorry I didn't send pictures to the right. I didn't send the pictures that I took. I was over there yesterday. It does seem like it's an older building, but it's been renovated, added on to, and renovated like a million times, it seems. Every window in the house is different. Some are casements, some are up, double hung. Anyway, I don't think that I have any reason to object to what they want to do. This is at the dead end of a street, right next to those high tension wires that go from like Southampton Watermill over to Sag Harbor. That's the.
And I'm familiar in sense with that area just because I was helping Sheila with North Sea for a while. And this particular house is not in AKRF or in the table. I drove by the other day, just looked at it from the street. What's interesting is I think the AYB is 1940, but it was actually moved to the foundation around 1979. And what I'm guessing is there's actually a former Whitfield estate to the left, hence the name, Whitfield Road. And the one to the left was at 56 Long Springs Road, 1890, H.D. Whitfield, an architect. It was referred to as Cluny Lodge. Its extent, but you can't see it from the road. And then there was a Clara Whitfield at Ivy Lodge, which they also called Sunnybright at one time at 120, which is nearby. But it's in the Hampton Park area. But this particular building, since it was moved there, my guess it might have been an accessory building of some sorts from the lodge area.
Is that your sense too, Jeff?
Yeah.
As well?
Yeah. So
So if we look a little bit at the dating of the.
But I have no objection, but just because it's the Hampton. Oh, and right to the right, that's Barrel Hill Road, it's not a road, it's marked on the maps as Barrel Hill Road, and it's, I guess, apparent right away, but it's open land or, but not used as a road. I think it would have been an extension of either North Main Street.
We look back a little bit to 1962, we see there's nothing there.
Yeah.
And then in 1976, we see there's something there.
Yeah.
So, and looks like it's been there for a while, given the surrounding grounds there. And it appears that that would be what was product of the move that took place back at some date.
I wrote 79, that's what I thought it said. I may have missed that with 76, but.
So,
But
well.
it's been very altered, so it's, I'm
yeah,
not
that
sure.
too. The character of the building doesn't show much associated with any particular style or that it was a designed
It's a
as
small
house
addition.
in the first place.
Yeah, it's.
Yeah.
So we don't have any problems with this. Okay, so we'll send a response. I'll take care of responding on that. And 50 Foster Avenue, Hampton Bays. Both Tim and Stephanie had taken a peek at the site at one point. And let's see where we go here. We get the and Stephanie provided some pictures associated with this. Unfortunately, I left the wrong.
Yeah, it looks like somebody's just doing a general renovation of the house. It's been heavily overgrown for a number of years. The picture in the historic survey report shows it surrounded by shrubberies. They've all been cut down now, and so you can actually get out the sides of the house, which are being repaired. There's definitely wood repair going on and painting going on, whatever. But there's just one area on the north side of the house where there was some tar paper or something covering what looked like an opening in the house. I couldn't tell if a door or something had been removed. But you couldn't see from the picture in the AKRF report what had originally been there.
Well, the house had different elements of siding to it. And let me get the report just to...
Yeah, only the front portion was painted. The back is all unpainted shingles.
Yeah, so this is a Victorian period house.
No.
And that's the area you're talking about that was covered.
That's the area
I couldn't figure out what may have been there previously, but clearly something was being fixed there.
They ran that electrical line up.
Yeah. It's an interesting house.
Before there was electricity.
The windows look to be original.
The 2/2.
2/2, yeah,
yes,
and they were not replacement.
And
What was the date?
The date of the house? I don't know. 1905, reportedly, which is.
Actually, I thought I found an argument for an earlier date for that.
Yeah, you said it was on the 1902 Suffolk County real estate map for Ponquag.
1896.
And
map
1896,
as
yeah.
well. It was owned by Fred Foster, who the house, the three houses in a row were Foster-owned houses. They were not members of the same family. This was Alonzo Foster, who was a carpenter. This was Fred Foster, who was a carpenter. And this one was Josiah Foster, whose son ultimately subdivided the property. I forget what year, but that made a multitude of houses on a property that once had only one house there. But the Fosters were concentrated in this area, the Foster clan, and they were associated with the Pennies, another big clan of this area of Ponquag, as it's called. In my report, I have one mistake. Well, I have probably more than one mistake, but the one mistake I found after I sent it out was, I think I said the land was bought from A.C. Penny.
For $2,000, yes.
And it's not A.C. Penny, but it's Allen Squires.
Oh, Alan, okay.
So, and I've corrected the version I have to indicate that. I just grabbed the wrong number as I was putting down what was supposed to be facts. Anyway, but the house to me is, along with a neighboring house, which is almost exactly the same style, character. I don't know if you got a sense of that when you went by to take the picture, but kind of a little impressive little cluster of historic structures there that deserve landmark attention at some point.
Yes.
So, okay, so if there's no objection to that, I'll
Objection.
response back to the building department.
Yep. It's very, very nice to see a historic structure like this being maintained, repaired.
A lot of those kind of Victorian structures. Some of those houses were often, when they were built by a family and so on, the family would camp out with relatives and rent them out in the summertime. And that also was the history of this house. And many of those Victorian houses also were chopped up eventually and altered on the outside. Hampton Bays had some very nice areas. So, okay, 50 Foster Avenue, 419 Paul's Lane. Okay, this is, we have had previous applications on this property, I think in 2017 and 2022, perhaps. I'm not sure exactly of the dates, to allow for,
2018.
what is it?
2018.
2018, okay, thank you. And what's happened, this is a very old house, sits on Paul's Lane in Bridgehampton, on the corner of Paul's Lane and Halsey Lane. And the house was built by Paul Halsey. So he got 2 bites of the apple for being remembered geographically in Bridgehampton. So the work that's there, this is 2024 aerial. Wonder why it jumps so easily. And what is there now, this area has a brand new house, modern in character. This is the structure that is old. It had a later addition that was made to it, and that was presented in a previous application to be removed, and the house was to be preserved by the owners. The fact that there are two houses on this parcel is a result of the era when the ZBA just would grant requests for approvals as they came through the door without much reflection. This property was granted the opportunity to have two houses by having one of them labeled a carriage house. And that was in 2018 or so that I believe that ZBA action. Of course, that kind of undermined the change in town code that was done in 2017, which said that a property owner searching for a carriage house, a second residence on the property, could acquire that if they landmarked their property, landmarked the house there on the property, and that would give them the right to have a second house. So the ZBA promptly pulled the rug out from underneath that incentive that was passed by the town board by the action that they took back in 2018. I don't think they wouldn't do that anymore, but there's enough awareness in the staff and the culture of the other boards that they're much more respectful of the inventory of historic properties that they're beginning now to pay attention to for the first time. And it's just a matter of keeping the pressure and attention on that so that they, wouldn't do that again.
Can you still do that routine where you have a separate building, a new one, or attach it by a breezeway or something to the main building? This is considered one structure.
That's probably more of a technical question. Our board technical consultant here, David Wilcox, is ill tonight, so he couldn't be here, but he would be the person who would answer the question. So that is an open question to keep in your mind there. But they have effectively dismantled the building already. I was there to look at it, and let's just see if the pictures are fairly nondescript. As you can see, a metal roofed new house that's just one wing of the house, new house that's there. But this is the structure that they detach the more modern additions from and are working to restore and keep that house. And I would say it is as well a target for landmarking, when the resources are there to bring attention to it.
Is that a center chimney?
Is that a?
The chimney is in center?
It's a center chimney, yes, yeah. So, and this is a corner lot that exists there. This is a better picture of it that you have.
Curious the way the windows are up there on the second level. There's that one off by itself.
Yes, it's.
So this is essentially the work already done, other than restoring that south elevation of the house.
Right. This this property before the new house was constructed had a number of mature trees And that's what's left of them in terms of the effect of the new construction that took place. So, so I don't think there's much for us to comment on here in terms of confirming the fact that the house is now in more pristine original structure that than it was before. And you know, unless somebody has some other comment to add to that. So, okay, well, I will then respond with no objection and point out the significance for a landmark opportunity down the road.
Just be sure to check your mics.
Do we have somebody?
No, sorry, I was just saying just be sure to check the mics.
Oh, check the mic, okay. Okay. 20 St. George Place, Quill. And Bill, you had
Yes.
the opportunity to review this.
Yep. So this property includes a dwelling, a detached garage, and a shed, all with AYBs of 1928. The proposed work includes demolition of most of the existing dwelling, then reconstruction of the dwelling with a substantial expansion, a complete redesign of the style and character of the dwelling, and the complete demolition and removal of the existing detached garage, the swimming pool, 2 sheds, and the 2 gates and gate posts. The application should more rightfully be called a demolition application, as the only construction to be left on the site is a portion of the foundation of the existing dwelling and some of the first floor floor joists. The drawings submitted with the application also show a future detached garage, a future pool house and swimming pool, and future gates and gate posts, but they are not included in this application at this time. The subject property is not identified as an historic resource in the Town of Southampton Historic Resources Survey, the AKRF. Although not formally identified in the AKRF, it is listed in the back of the report under other properties evaluated in Quiog. The subject property is identified as number 41 in the Quiog Hamlet Heritage Resource Area Report of 2007. No identified historic resources are in the immediate proximity of the property. None of the identified historic resources in Quiog are visible from the subject property. Nearby, the dwelling at 20 Linden Lane is related to the subject property, as it was also owned at one time by the same owner, Benjamin Allen, although recently that house has been substantially altered. The 1873 map showed that Franklin Avenue and St. George Place had not yet been established. No development was apparent at the location of the subject property, but it was noted as owned by H. Wines, which is Hiram Wines. In 1873, Hiram Wines purchased the property from Jabez Foster, who had purchased the property in 1852. The 1902 map showed the subject property is owned by W. Wines, which was William Wines, but no development was shown. Foster Avenue and St. George Place still had not been established. In 1911, William Wines sold the property to H. Burton, which was Henry Burton, and the 1916 map showed Henry Burton as the property owner, and the property continued to show no development. Around 1921, the property was sold to Benjamin Allen, who built a house at 20 Linden Lane and at 20 St. George Place, a hunting lodge, which was the current subject dwelling. Benjamin Allen named the property Natamaset, reportedly named after a Navajo Indian chief he had met while traveling in the Southwest. This nickname likely led to the road to the east also being named Natamaset Street. The town GIS indicates that the dwelling, detached garage, and shed all have AYBs of 1928, The pool and patio and the cabana, which I believe is the north wing of the dwelling, all have AYBs of 1965. I couldn't find the cabana boathouse on there, but prior to the house being continued as one long house, in the 2003 GIS photo, it shows a section of the house separated by a covered breezeway, but it's open underneath. So I believe that that was probably the boathouse, and then it was incorporated into the remainder of the house. Building permit was issued in February of 2025 to demolish and remove the existing one-story garage without Landmarks Board review, even though the structure has an AYB of 1928. The AKRF list of other properties evaluated in Quogue and the historic profile of the hamlet of Quogue describe the subject property as follows. Benjamin Allen Lodge. The Benjamin Allen built a hunting lodge structure on the northern part of his property, close to the Aspetuck Creek, about 1928. This low single-story structure was reportedly built in 1928 as a hunting lodge. The structure consists of many components, some of which may have been added at a later date. Additional research may be warranted to assess the significance and integrity of this resource. However, based on limited views, it does not appear to possess sufficient significance. The hunting lodge remained in the Allen family for many years after Benjamin died, and most of Natamasset had been sold off. The building has been beautifully renovated and as a private residence, today much enlarged and renovated. Aspetuck Island remains part of this property today. Linden Lane was originally called Wines Lane after the John Wines family who lived there prior to 1900. In celebration of a new stand of linden trees, which Benjamin Allen planted along Wines Lane, Allen renamed the lane Linden Lane. The trees have grown over the years and still stand guard along the lane. Allen turned the old back way to the farm just south of the Catholic Church into the main entrance and put up wooden gate posts which still guard the way. I looked around, I could not find the wooden gate posts. So since 2007, they've disappeared. Benjamin Allen also dredged part of Aspetuck Creek and pumped the sand to form the small Aspetuck Island, also called Tick Island. Allen's family and guests would picnic on summer days on this private island. After Allen died, the farm was sold in 1952. The dwelling is not visible from any of the streets. It has unoriginal wood shingle siding and a recent wood shingle roof that both appear to still be in good condition. The GIS photographs from 2003 show the dwelling with clapboard siding with an unusually wide exposure. The detached garage still has the clapboard siding with that unusually wide exposure. Approximately 8 windows of the house still have the original windows in good condition. They're single glazed wood windows with either chains or rope sash cords and sash weights, and still appear to be operational. The front porch and stoop appear to be newer. The front door appears to be original. The triangle glass light in the door resembles the gable end window above it. The triangular gable end window has one glass light replaced with a wooden panel with a large hole in it. The exterior trim on the house is in very poor condition. In the attic, you can see the original roof rafters with wood roofing lath. Some of the lath has been replaced with new, where I guess it had become rotten, and voids between some of the lath on the north side of the house. Lath was added in between the individual courses of the original ones. The wood roofing shingles can still be seen from inside the house and, of course, outside. The entire dwelling received a new poured concrete foundation in 2014. The house was raised to conform to FEMA at that time. It was also given all new laminated veneer lumber, LVL girders, and steel columns. Some areas still have the original dimensional lumber floor joists, and others have more recent engineered wood eye joists. Most of this foundation is to be retained for the new dwelling. Some of it is to be removed, as well as the north section. As you see in that photograph towards the bottom end of the house, there's the thin breezeway, and then that little sort of room on the end of the house. That's what I believe was the original cabana or boathouse, because originally that breezeway was open, although now it's been enclosed as part of the house to get to that room. The second floor window in the detached garage is the only original window left in the garage, and it has wavy glass in it. The other windows in the garage are actually just old wooden storm sashes that have been set into window frames. So there are no double hung window sashes or even anything in the frame that looked like the sashes had been there and removed. It looks like they were just these sashes from the beginning. The driveway gates and gate posts do not appear to be old. They will be removed. The property does not appear to meet any of the criteria for consideration as a landmark under the Town of Southampton Code. I feel that the Landmarks Board should have no objection to this construction application, as the dwelling appears to retain almost no historic fabric. Most of the exterior finishes have been replaced, including all of the roofing, all of the siding, the majority of the exterior windows and doors. The original mass of the dwelling is somewhat identifiable. It was from being in the crawl space that we could figure out where the dimensional lumber floor joists were and where the additions were, because they all had the wood eye joist floor joists, more modern materials. There have been multiple additions to both ends and the front side of the house. Again, this subject dwelling is not visible from the street. I felt that some of the original windows, perhaps the front door, there are a number of board and batten interior doors, the gable end window, and perhaps the gable end vents should all be offered to the local community projects where the items might be repurposed in historic resources being restored.
Very thorough. And
yeah, here you can see where the original lath is still there, but then when they redid the roof, they added all new lath in between the original lath.
It was a great report. I think so many of the details. I feel I'm almost heartbroken that they're going to be obliterated. I mean, you did a good job documenting, but I think overall, there's nothing to do once we get them. It's a demolition application, which you pointed out, versus a construction, and that concerns me that somebody's able to submit something that's basically a demolition and call it something else, because what it is being replaced with is totally new, contemporary, has...
Oh yeah, very different in character to that.
I mean, it's totally...
Yeah. And
it's not an addition, it's not a construction, it's a new...
They are 38 feet from the wetlands with this house, which is why they're keeping some of it, so that they can keep that footprint. Otherwise, they'd be back 150 feet from the wetlands. So this was their opportunity to stay closer to the water by saving what little of the house was necessary to do so.
You won't be able to tell in any way that
just
that was
doesn't
once
seem
part of
like a
something else.
fair application, a fair representation. So, but it was a wonderful report.
Yeah, one thing I wanted to point out with this is that unlike some other things that we've seen recently, this house is not, even though it's going to be very modern looking, it is not at all visible from any public street. The only place you could see it from is across the creek, or if you happen to be boating on the creek, and this is up at toward the headwaters of the creek. There's not a lot of boat traffic up here. So even though it's in a community with a high density of historic houses, you're not going to be able to see this more modern house once it's built from any of the historic areas. So I think that, in my mind, factors into not particularly objecting to this.
any other thoughts from anyone else? Well, it sounds reasonable to me in terms of the assessment made, and if there's no objection, we should respond appropriately to the building department. And Bill, would you take care of that? Thank you for that. So, okay. So we are moving down to referrals. We have one for 1-2 Trees Lane. I almost wanted to make me say 1-2-3 Lane. But I don't know, I did not take any. It's a referral from the planning department and it involves a covenant amendment, I believe.
Yeah, they have a, as I understand, the permission to operate this as a horse farm now, and what they're proposing to do is, I think, add 2 sand rings for the horses, and I think enlarge an existing one. They're also proposing a farm gate along one of the roadways and to add some manure containers. They're also increasing the number of horses that are allowed on the property from the current, I think it's 89, up to, I think it's 120. And there's no buildings proposed here. There's no change of use other than an intensification of the existing use.
Okay.
No demolition proposed.
I'm not sure any of this is significant with respect to the historic. Right? This is and was a historic dairy farm for the area, hay ground, and that had long ago disappeared. In the 1970s, I think this 2 Trees development first started. And there has been, I believe, some local controversy with neighbors over certain of its activities, but that doesn't bear any impact on us. We do have an application for landmarking a very old house nearby on Hayground Road that just appeared, I think, today. Was it? And that would not be impacted by anything that is going on here, as far as I can see. So, is it all right to just reply? No comment on it? Yeah, so, okay. 978 we already did, and I will send my comments about potential landmarking to the planning board to that. 181 Bridgehampton Sag Harbor Turnpike is a subdivision application to subdivide a property that into 2 parcels that and so basically this is fairly close to the heart of Bridgehampton itself, not far from Montauk Highway, but this is the parcel here. The house dates from 1870. If you look at the subdivision plan, it essentially divides the property in such a way as to run right through the house. And that suggests that the approval of the subdivision would lead to the destruction of the 1870 house. Now, the 1870 house has been for many years, 50 or 60 years, actually divided into 2 apartments that have been rented. One of the consequences of that is probably they were affordable housing as apartments in this old house. And that certainly will disappear, and there will probably be rather expensive new construction to taking its place on both these parcels. The neighboring property, this is kind of a mixed commercial area. This site was a restaurant where you see the parking lot here. And this site is a delicatessen that is fairly actively patronized every day by landscapers and others who are looking for a quick bite to eat at a reasonable cost compared to dining in Bridgehampton's expensive restaurants. In any case, that does imply, and I should point out too that this is the First Baptist Church on the corner here as well. Yes.
There's two subdivision plans in here. There's the 2-lot subdivision that you have up there, which would entail putting a lot line right through the middle of the house. But they also have a proposed subdivision with a density incentive provision, which would create 3 lots. 1 lot of which would encompass the house, and the other 2 of which would be flag lots behind. I think
Let me see if I get the
this application is that both types of subdivision are under consideration here. It would seem to me that if we wanted to keep the house, to recommend the density incentive subdivision.
Okay, so that's this.
That's this configuration, yeah.
Right here. That. Well, that would seemingly preserve the structure as a familiar facade for the Bridgehampton Sag Harbor Turnpike, and that makes sense.
Yeah, I would think our recommendation should be for the density incentive.
Is that consensus? So thank you for pointing that out. And that gives a chance to opt for the positive outcome. Okay. Pending landmark district application, outreach, etc. 290 Majors Path, I indicated to Martin Schwartz that we didn't have a chance to put together all the report material, and we would put it off till May 20th. So that will be on the agenda for May 20th. 85 Eastway Shinnecock Hills is a potential. We don't know anything about that in terms of any submissions at the moment. 4 Beaver Dam Road was before the town board on April 8th last week. The resolution was defective, and in the process of getting it into what's called Minute Track, which is a little system like we use for the Landmarks Board to put the applications in. The text of the material was copied from another resolution for landmarking, so that I won't go into the details, but it's a little bit funny, but in any case, it's on for the next town board meeting, the correct version of it. with all the material that was in our reports that we sent forward. 18 Flying Point Road did make it. It was approved, so that is now a new member of our distinguished portfolio of landmark structures in Southampton Town. And Vicki, thank you for doing the presentation, and Susan, thank you as well. So I watched from afar, from online, and it did go very well. Because you weren't at the original town board work session. Oh, okay. But did you? There was a comment made at the work session that hopefully we don't have to cover all of this again. But I think you captured it in briefer form anyway, so it sailed through without a problem. 65 Old Riverhead Road remains for me to complete my report. The acquisition has taken place, on I think other grounds other than historic, but I saw that the acquisition was reported in a newspaper, so unless you don't want to believe everything you read. So. 520 we did. Stony Brook Southampton Windmill is on the back burner compared to all the other things we have going on. 11 Walnut Avenue East Quogue is also awaiting progress on easement processing for historic facades. 149 South Country Road is also in that same situation. We don't have any progress there. And we have on, just as a reminder, 29 Dock Road, Spionk, a landmark, that they are a recipient of the 2023 Landmarks Maintenance Award, but it was awaiting their acquisition of an easement offer as well from the Community Preservation Fund. So that is just to keep a reminder there, because we almost forgot that.
They do have their easement now, and I spoke to the owner, and they are intending to do the window project this year.
Okay, very good. So that's an update on the report. That's good, thanks. And the reason that came to the fore was we had submitted the North Sea Community Schoolhouse for a Landmarks Maintenance Award, and doing the bookkeeping on the dollars and cents, it was apparent that there was something missing in the formula, and so that's why we haven't noted on the agenda as well. It's for about $6,000 some odd dollars, $6,000+ for that award. And the town board did also approve April 8th the designation of the North Sea Schoolhouse. And that means that Jeff will have to do some kind of memo or report encompassing the photos that you took, that as certifying the project is completed as it was intended, and that you're recommending that at the next meeting, a landmarks board recommend to the town board the actual payment of it. So, and if you get questions, email me or contact me, and we can figure out the language and content of it. That's just part of the validation scheme that's in the original resolution for landmarks maintenance award activity. I understand also we're going to get a prospective landmarking application from a church in West Hampton.
Yes, I've been working with the Methodist Church in West Hampton, and provided them historic maps, and they're working on preparing the application, and that will be coming our way.
Sorry, the microphone.
Sorry.
Yeah, the Methodist, it's the West Methodist Church in West Hampton intends to submit a landmarking application. I've been working with them on, the information, what they need to do to prepare the application. They are preparing the application. I did send them the historic maps for their use in the application. So I don't know the timing though.
Okay, well, good news to hear as well. So, let's see, anything else of significance? Anything from a certified local government perspective that, Sandy?
I think Dave sent around a note to everybody about the planning conference. I had already registered for it, but if you get in there now with that scholarship application, you can waive waive that fee to the conference, because the first day is going to be for CLG.
Oh.
And that's all I have.
Do we have anything else to consider or on our minds? I don't think that there is anything. There must be something I forgot, but I forgot what it was. Anyway, if there is no other business for our board from the members of the board, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you. Thank you.